Imagine walking into a room full of, like, super powerful Hollywood executives.
No, a daunting room to begin with.
Right, and you're pitching a superhero movie, but they just stare back at you in total confusion.
Because they have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. They literally think you want to make an action blockbuster about a 1960s political party.
That is just wild to think about now.
It really is. But that is exactly what happened to actor Wesley Snipes back in 1992. He was trying to pitch Black Panther, and the studio heads they didn't even know the comic book character existed.
It sounds completely absurd today, right? Considering the absolute cultural ubiquity of the character now.
Yeah, I mean, he's everywhere.
But back then, the disconnect was just massive, and I think it highlights just how steep the climb was for this property.
Yeah.
We're talking about a project that took, 25 years of false starts? 25 years of industry misunderstandings and fierce creative battles just to finally get in front of a camera.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a true cultural monolith for you, the 2018 film Black Panther.
Which is just a fascinating topic.
So fascinating. And we are pulling today from a remarkably comprehensive Wikipedia article that details everything from that arduous production history we just mentioned to the film's meticulous design, its complex ideological themes, and its explosive reception.
And we really want to look way beyond just the standard superhero action today.
Right, because it's so much more than that.
Exactly. You don't have to be a comic book fan at all to appreciate what happened here. This is really a case study in how fiction can actually reshape real-world cultural landscapes.
Yeah.
It's about how a highly specific, totally uncompromising vision managed to challenge these deeply entrenched industry norms and actually win.
Totally. We're going to explore how intentional world building and this deeply nuanced ideological conflict created a shortcut for you to understand exactly why this film didn't just make $1 billion, but actually shifted the cultural center of gravity.
It's a huge shift.
It is. So to really grasp that impact, we have to start with that 25-year uphill struggle. When Wesley Snipes was pitching this in the early 90s, what was his actual driving motivation? Because superhero movies weren't exactly a guaranteed goldmine back then.
No, not at all. His motivation was deeply cultural, actually.
Right.
Snipes was looking at the landscape of Hollywood and just seeing this relentless parade of negative or, at best, incredibly limited stereotypes regarding Africa and African characters.
Yeah, the representation was pretty dismal.
It was. So he wanted to combat that directly. He saw T'Challa, this brilliant, noble, incredibly wealthy African king, as the perfect antithesis to those damaging tropes.
He wanted to show something completely different.
He wanted to present majesty, basically.
But then he hits that wall of executive confusion. I mean, they literally think he's pitching a movie about Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party.
Which perfectly illustrates the cultural cachet of African or Black superheroes at the time within the studio system.
Which was...
It was zero. Absolutely zero.
Yeah.
So the project just stalls. It languishes in development hell for over 2 decades.
2 decades.
Yeah, it went through different writers, different directors, different corporate regimes. It really wasn't until Marvel Studios built their cinematic universe into this massive juggernaut that they finally debuted the character.
Played by Chadwick Boseman, of course, in 2016's Captain America Civil War.
Right, exactly.
And he just steals the movie. I
Yeah.
mean, he was phenomenal in that limited screen time.
It really was.
But when it came time to finally make the standalone Black Panther film, finding the right director became a whole new saga, right?
Yeah.
They originally met with Ava DuVernay.
He did, yeah.
And she's a brilliant filmmaker, but she ultimately walked away. Why would someone pass on the chance to direct a guaranteed blockbuster with that kind of cultural weight?
Well, she passed precisely because of that cultural weight and her understanding of how the studio machine actually works.
Oh, interesting.
DuVernay recognized the importance of a Black hero on a global scale, of course, but she also knew that Marvel had a very established, strict formula.
Like the Marvel House style.
Exactly. They had in-house visual styles, in-house action teams, in-house conceptual artists. She felt she would have to compromise her specific creative vision to fit the studio's mandate.
Ah, I see.
She wanted to make an Ava DuVernay film, not just assemble a Marvel product.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
And that opens the door for Ryan Coogler. He was coming off the massive success of revitalizing the Rocky franchise with Creed.
Huge success.
Yeah. So Marvel wants him. He agrees, But he comes in with a major stipulation that directly addresses those concerns DuVernay had.
Yeah, he insisted on bringing in his own people.
Wow.
He essentially bypassed the traditional Marvel machine and brought in his own indie film collaborators. We're talking about his cinematographer, Rachel Morrison, and his production designer, Hannah Beachler.
So not the usual blockbuster crew.
No, these are people he had worked with on intimate, critically acclaimed indie films like Fruitvale Station.
Okay, let me see if I'm tracking this. On a massive, hundreds of millions of dollars studio tentpole, where the studio usually mandates using their veteran blockbuster crews to ensure it looks like all their other movies.
Yep, the standard protocol.
Coogler fights for his indie team. It's almost like, I don't know, if you hired a master craftsman to build a skyscraper, but instead of using the generic corporate toolkit, they demand to bring their own specialized hand-forged tools. He needed his own tools to make it work.
That is actually a perfect way to look at it, because Coogler knew the assignment wasn't just, make an action movie.
Right.
He explicitly stated he wanted to make a love letter to Africa.
A love letter. That's beautiful.
And if he used the standard assembly line crew, the film would inevitably feel like an assembly line product.
Yeah, it would lose its soul.
Exactly. He needed a team that could ensure the film felt distinct, deeply personal, and above all, culturally grounded.
And that hand-picked team had a remarkably delicate task in front of them. I mean, their primary job was to design Wakanda.
A massive undertaking.
A futuristic African nation that had never been colonized. Like, how do you even begin to conceptualize that? You can't just look at modern African cities because those cities have all been shaped in some way by European colonialism.
Right, and that was the defining challenge for Hannah Beachler, the production designer.
Yeah.
She couldn't just project Western architectural evolution into the future and paint it over with African motifs.
That wouldn't work at all.
No, she had to fundamentally ask, what does advanced technology and urban planning look like if it evolves continuously over centuries, entirely from indigenous African traditions?
Man, it sounds like they were conducting an archaeological dig for a future that never actually happened.
What's fascinating here is how she actually found her answers. She went straight to real-world geography and history.
Really? Where did they look?
Coogler and Beachler drew heavy inspiration from Lesotho.
Lesotho.
Yeah, it's a southern African country that historically managed to protect its independence from colonial powers, largely because of its highly mountainous, inaccessible terrain.
Oh, wow. So it literally was hidden away.
Exactly. Wakanda's isolation was built on that real-world precedent.
The scale of what Beachler ended up building to reflect this is just staggering. We live in an era where blockbuster filmmakers usually just throw up green screens and let the visual effects artists figure it out later.
Just fix it in post, yeah.
Right. But she built massive practical sets. I'm looking at the notes on the Warrior Falls set right now. This wasn't a digital painting.
No, not at all.
They built this on a back lot north of Atlanta. It was 36 feet high. It had a functioning waterfall powered by 6 industrial pumps. And they constructed it using 25,000 cubic feet of sculpted foam.
25,000 cubic feet. And that foam wasn't just carved randomly either.
It wasn't.
No, the textures were designed to perfectly match the geological striations of the rocks found at the real-life Aribi Gorge in South Africa.
Oh, are you kidding?
That is the level of tactile reality they were going for.
That's insane detail. But they did have to rely on visual effects for the massive Golden City, right?
Yeah.
The capital of Wakanda. You can't physically build an entire metropolis.
True, true. But even the digital work was incredibly intentional. The visual effects teams didn't just duplicate a few futuristic skyscrapers and call it a day.
What did they do?
They designed and modeled 60,000 individual buildings.
60,000.
Yeah. And they seamlessly blended those traditional elements with high-concept science fiction. So you see skyscrapers that aren't capped with flat roofs or helipads,
Right.
but with traditional thatched roofs. Rondavels. You have magnetic levitation trains running alongside architecture inspired by the pre-colonization Mali Empire. It's a completely cohesive visual language.
And that granular attention to detail extended directly to the people inhabiting the city, too. Costume designer Ruth E. Carter created 700 individual costumes.
It's a monumental achievement.
700, and you can see how heavily she leaned into real African cultures to pull this off.
She was incredibly rigorous about it. A great example is the Dora Milaje, Wakanda's elite all-female special forces.
Oh, they look amazing.
They did. And Carter completely rejected the typical comic book trope of female warriors fighting in form-fitting spandex or basically metal bathing suits.
Because if you're the elite royal guard, you need actual functional protection, not just a flashy outfit.
Precisely. She designed full practical armor, but the armor told a story. She pulled specific inspiration from the Maasai people of Kenya.
Really? How so?
Well, the armor featured beaded tabards that, in the mythology of the world, are talismans passed down from mother to daughter. It was lethal, it was functional, but it reflected the immense respect and historical stature these warriors commanded.
And didn't she color code the different Wakandan tribes based on real demographics?
She did, yeah. The river tribe wears green with shells, which is a direct reference to the Surrey people.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the merchant tribe is dressed in plums and purples, referencing the Tuareg. Every single visual choice was anchored in an actual culture.
They even grounded the entire society in a real-world language. The Wakandans don't speak some made-up sci-fi gibberish. They speak a version of Xhosa.
A very intentional choice.
Yeah, it's a living African language known for its distinctive click consonants. It gives the actors a real linguistic weight when they speak to each other.
But if we step back for a second, solving the visual problem and the linguistic problem is really only half the battle.
How do you mean?
Well, you can build a gorgeous, uncolonized utopia, but if you close your eyes, what does a society that skipped European colonization actually sound like?
Oh, that's a great question.
If the score sounds like a traditional Hollywood orchestra, the illusion is broken instantly.
I am so glad you brought that up, because the audio landscape is where my mind was melting reading these sources. The composer, Ludwig Göransson, he absolutely refused to just sit in an LA studio and use generic percussion samples.
He took it very seriously.
He traveled to Senegal, he spent a month researching traditional music, and actually toured with the legendary Senegalese musician Baba Maal.
And that research trip is where he found the foundational sonic heartbeat for the entire film.
The talking drum, right?
Exactly. He anchored the score with the talking drum and the fula flute, which is also known as the tampon.
But this is what I don't get. A traditional Senegalese talking drum is an ancient acoustic instrument.
Very organic, yes.
So here's where it gets really interesting. How do you successfully merge that organic sound with a massive CGI-heavy superhero car chase through the neon streets of South Korea?
It sounds impossible, right?
Yeah. How does that not sound completely disjointed?
You do it by treating those traditional instruments with the same structural respect and cinematic weight that Hollywood usually reserves for a sweeping orchestral string section.
Oh, I see.
Göransson didn't just paste a drum track over the action, he layered it. He used the talking drum as a rhythmic engine, literally mimicking T'Challa's actual heartbeat and movements on screen.
That's brilliant.
And then he layered heavy, modern synth and 808 bass underneath it. He used the music as a bridge between the earthy, ancient traditions of Wakanda and its sleek, futuristic capabilities.
So connect the two worlds.
Exactly. The drum grounds the audience's emotional experience in humanity, even when the visuals are purely digital.
And they push that bridge between the ancient and the contemporary even further with the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Director Ryan Coogler teamed up with Kendrick Lamar to curate the film's pop album.
Which was a massive deal at the time. They seamlessly integrated Lamar's modern artistic hip-hop themes directly into the film's narrative fabric.
Right. It wasn't just random songs slapped on at the end.
No, it wasn't just background music.
Uh-huh.
It actively linked the fictional, isolated African nation with the very real, modern, Black American cultural experience.
Which actually brings us perfectly to the core of the film. Because all of this, the intricate architecture, the historically grounded armor, the Senegalese percussion.
The world building.
Right, it's all just world building.
Yeah.
But beautifully designed world building sets the perfect stage for a deeply complex philosophical conflict.
It does.
Once you have this incredible, powerful, hidden nation, the obvious question becomes, well, what do they do with that power?
And that is the ideological war between King T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, and Eric Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan.
Such a good dynamic.
It really elevates the movie from a standard action flick to essentially a political tragedy. T'Challa believes in Wakanda's strict isolationist policies. He wants to protect his people by hiding their power from a destructive world.
But Killmonger is an outsider. He is American-born. He has experienced the trauma and oppression of Black people globally firsthand.
He has lived it.
Yeah, and he discovers this hidden African utopia sitting on a mountain of advanced vibranium weapons. So his goal is to seize the throne and distribute those weapons to start a worldwide armed revolution against oppressors.
And the preparation Michael B. Jordan did to embody that philosophy was intense. I mean, he didn't just hit the gym.
What else did he do?
He studied Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Huey P. Newton, and Tupac Shakur.
Wow.
He was trying to synthesize a very specific kind of righteous strategic fury.
Even his physical appearance in the film is loaded with meaning. He had 90 individually sculpted silicone molds applied to his chest and torso to simulate tribal scarification.
90 molds.
Yeah, it took over 2 hours in the makeup chair every single day.
Right.
But he wasn't just doing it to look intimidating. The scars represented his kills as a Black Ops soldier. But on a deeper level, it was an American character aggressively reclaiming an African tribal identity that had been severed by history.
It's brilliant visual storytelling, and it leads to a critical debate that made this film such a touchstone, because the movie forces the audience to actually grapple with Killmonger's worldview.
Right.
He is pointing out entirely real, historically accurate trauma.
I have to admit, reading the analysis of this conflict was so fascinating.
Mm.
Because, in most superhero movies, the villain just wants to destroy a city for money, or they want a generic glowing cube that gives them unlimited power.
They're cartoons.
Exactly, they are cartoons. But here, the villain is pointing out very real historical trauma. So what does this all mean for the viewer? Is the movie asking us to agree with Killmonger's ends, just not his means?
That exact question split cultural critics, and we have to look at this impartially because both sides of the debate reveal how dense the script actually is.
Okay, let's hear the sides.
On one side, you have critics who view Killmonger as a symbol of radical internationalism. They argue that the film ultimately unfairly vilifies him.
Unfairly? How so?
Their critique is that the movie relies on respectability politics, essentially suggesting that armed radical resistance to systemic oppression is inherently villainous, and that the only acceptable path is T'Challa's peaceful, incremental outreach.
Right, so they felt it was a cop-out to take a character fighting for global Black liberation and portray him as a manic killer just to make the hero look better by comparison.
Exactly. But then you have analysts like Adam Serwer who take a completely different view. Serwer argued that Killmonger doesn't actually represent liberation at all. He represents imperialism.
Wait, really? How does he figure that?
Because Killmonger is a product of the CIA. His methods are entirely Western. His goal isn't just to free the oppressed. His stated goal is to use Wakandan weapons to conquer the world's major cities and install himself as the new leader.
So he wants to become the new oppressor.
Exactly. He wants to replace the existing empire with a Wakandan empire. So in this view, the film's verdict isn't necessarily that violence is wrong, but that imperialism itself is a poison. It leans on that famous Audre Lorde concept, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.
Oh, wow. It's not a battle of good versus evil at all.
Not at all.
It's this incredibly tragic clash. You have the raw, unresolved trauma of the African diaspora colliding head-on with the preservation of an uncolonized African utopia.
Yes.
The movie doesn't give you an easy answer. It forces you to sit with that discomfort.
And because it tackled such profound real-world trauma and pride with that level of nuance, it couldn't be contained as just a Friday night popcorn movie.
It was way too big for that.
It broke out of the confines of the theater. It actually altered the real world.
The box office alone altered the industry math. I mean, it grossed $1.35 billion worldwide.
Unbelievable numbers.
It became the highest-grossing film by a Black director in history. But what's really wild are the demographics. On its opening weekend in the United States, the audience was 37% African American.
Which is an unprecedented metric for a massive tentpole film. It proved to Hollywood executives definitively that you don't have to whitewash a narrative to make $1 billion.
Nope.
It proved that African American narratives have the power to generate massive global profits.
But it went so far beyond just ticket sales. It became this massive philanthropic movement. A man named Frederick Joseph started a GoFundMe drive in Harlem.
I remember this.
Yeah, his goal was simple. Raise enough money so underserved children of color in his community could go to a theater and see a major Black comic book character on screen, looking majestic.
And that single campaign ignited a fire. It sparked what became known as the Global Black Panther Challenge. People started over 400 similar drives worldwide. They raised over $400,000 globally just to ensure kids who might not otherwise have the means could experience this specific representation.
It's as if the movie itself became a piece of vibranium.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It was this incredibly powerful, purely fictional resource, but it was actively empowering people in the real world, from Harlem kids to the Academy Awards.
It's the ultimate proof of the concept. If you can see it, you can be it. The film demonstrated that marginalized narratives don't have to be treated as niche or risky.
Not at all.
They can be the central, highly profitable, and critically acclaimed pillar of global pop culture.
And speaking of critical acclaim, it shattered the ceiling for the superhero genre at the Oscars. It earned 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture.
Which was historic.
No superhero film in history had ever been nominated for Best Picture before. And it took home 3 Oscars for Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, and Best Original Score. It proved that a movie with massive CGI battles could also be an auteur-driven masterpiece with undeniable cultural significance.
Of course. We cannot discuss the legacy of this cultural phenomenon without acknowledging the tragedy that followed.
Yeah.
The passing of Chadwick Boseman in 2020 from colon cancer cast a totally different light on the film.
It really did. Because when you realize he was battling a severe terminal illness privately while filming this physically demanding, culturally monumental role,
It's just staggering.
it adds such a profound layer to his performance.
Yeah.
He brought this quiet, grounded dignity to T'Challa that really anchored the entire chaotic world around him.
He did. And Marvel handled his passing in a very specific, respectful way. They updated the studio's production logo animation on Disney Plus to feature exclusively images of Boseman.
That was a beautiful tribute.
But more importantly, they made the definitive, creative, and ethical choice not to recast the role of T'Challa for the sequel, Wakanda Forever. They chose to honor his specific, irreplaceable contribution to the character and the culture.
They shifted the entire narrative of their multi-billion-dollar franchise rather than just plugging a new actor into the assembly line.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to where we started. We've traced this incredible journey. We started with Wesley Snipes fighting an uphill battle against stereotypes in the 90s, just trying to get executives to understand who the character was.
A long road.
Such a long road. We moved to Ryan Coogler, demanding an indie approach to a corporate giant, bringing in brilliant minds to meticulously design an uncolonized Africa, literally sculpting rock formations into foam and scoring it with the authentic, blended sounds of a nation.
All of that detail.
All of it. Which set the perfect stage for a deeply complex ideological conflict between T'Challa and Killmonger that resonated so deeply, it literally changed Hollywood history. We hope you walk away from this deep dive equipped with a newfound appreciation for the immense layers beneath the surface of this film.
And to leave you with something to ponder, consider the fact that a purely fictional world, Wakanda, was able to fundamentally alter the very real, entrenched systems of Hollywood, from box office demographic assumptions to the highest levels of the Oscars.
It's incredible.
It raises an incredible question for you to think about in your own life. If a well-crafted fiction can shift reality on a global scale, what deeply entrenched realities or limits in your own industry or life might be reshaped simply by daring to imagine and fully commit to an advanced, uncompromised version of your own potential?
Wow. Because it turns out sometimes the only way to fix a broken corporate assembly line isn't to tweak the machinery. Sometimes you have to replace the factory floor entirely with something the world has never seen before. Until next time.